Telstra's network goes into nationwide meltdown.
And so do Apple smartphones with the deadly Error 53. Welcome to Vertical Hold, the tech show where we channel surf through the headlines in search of the big picture. I'm Adam Turner and I'm here with the real man on the grassy knoll, Alex Kidman. Also joining us is Fairfax technology journalist Hannah Francis. Hannah, welcome to the show.
Hi guys, great to be here.
Alex, what's new in tech?
The deadline for Dallas Buyers Club LLC to appeal in its long-running Australian piracy case has passed, with the firm opting not to proceed. This effectively shutters its particular case. The intrigue in the case, which never actually got to the stage of issuing notices against alleged offenders, largely hinged on how far-reaching Dallas Buyers Club's speculative invoices might have been.
Legislation to introduce the so-called Netflix tax has gone before federal parliament, aiming to ensure that foreign companies are forced to add the GST to goods and services sold to Australians. The move is expected to raise $350 million for the states and territories over the next 4 years. It comes after strong lobbying from Australian retail groups and is coupled with plans to remove the $1,000 GST-free threshold for online goods in 2017.
Optus has unveiled a range of devices to further sell its Cash by Optus contactless payment system. Android users can pick up a free NFC-enabled wearable band to enable fast payments of up to $100 in a single transaction, while iPhone users can pop an NFC sticker on the back of their phones to achieve the same effect. Although it's not clear whether Optus's NFC sticker will play nicely with the inbuilt Apple Pay NFT technology in the iPhone 6 and 6S.
PayPal has waded into the geo-blocking debate by refusing to accept payments for Unitally and Unblock-US, two popular services which offer VPN and DNS workarounds for Australians looking to sneak into Netflix's US library. The move comes as Netflix struggles to maintain its blockade on customers who use these services to mask their location.
So Adam, it's been a busy week for Netflix with the so-called Netflix tax, not that they're responsible for that, but also with PayPal saying that they're not going to accept money from VPN providers because people are, in their words, contravening copyright by accessing overseas services such as Netflix. Are they on the money here?
Well, it's interesting. I'm not quite sure why PayPal's sticking their nose into this. Obviously, there are relationships behind the scenes, but it's not as straightforward as just they're blocking VPN services, and it's kind of frustrating. A lot of the reporting on this doesn't seem to differentiate between VPN and DNS, and it kind of lumps them all together. They're not refusing to take payments for every VPN service provider. It's just two in particular, Unitally and Unblock-US, because they actually started out not as VPN services, but as DNS workarounds. So it's a setting you can change in your computer or Apple TV or whatever that lets you pretend you're in America. They added VPN services later because they knew that people also wanted to use the VPN services, but they're not being cracked down on just because they supply VPNs. They're being cracked down on because their whole business model is saying to people, hey, use us to get into Netflix. So,
oh yeah, they've always been really pretty blatant about that.
That's why they're picking on these two. Hannah, why do you think that PayPal would want to stick their nose into this?
Well, they do have a history of getting a bit political in this regard, blocking payments to BitTorrent sites and file hosting services and things like that. But yeah, this is, of course, it's gotten a little bit more hairy because everyone loves to read about Netflix, and there's a lot of Australian users that do sneak into overseas Netflix catalogues, the US in particular, because it's thousands more titles than we do in Australia. So, look, what does it have to gain? I don't know. Is it processing a lot of payments from film studios?
It's kind of a token gesture, really, because it doesn't stop these people using Unitally and Unblock-US via other services. So, yeah, I think, as you say, it's more about just saying which side of the argument they're on rather than having any real effect.
The thing to bear in mind, though, is PayPal's not a bank. People think of PayPal as a bank, but they're a business, and actually they go out of their way, while they have to comply with the financial regulations where they operate, they go out of their way to avoid being classified as a bank. They're a business, and it wouldn't surprise me if at least in part, this is simply so they can shield themselves. And maybe they'll only do this with Unitelli and Unblock-US. So they can shield themselves and say, no, we're not taking money. We're not enabling this kind of thing to shield ourselves from lawsuits further down the track. That angle wouldn't surprise me.
They can say they've done their bit. See, look,
exactly.
We did our bit to stop geododgers. When in reality, there are dozens more VPNs that do exactly the same thing. And they've all confirmed, or several of them have confirmed, that they are continuing to have payments processed by PayPal. So it's a token gesture, and it's certainly sending a message, but it's not actually going to be particularly effective.
Unless they extend it out. If they suddenly said, VPNs are a category we will not take any money from, no matter who you are, then we're talking a different kind of ballgame.
So, Alex, Telstra had a slight technical problem with its network the other day. What happened?
Well, as long as by slight technical problem you mean complete and total meltdown with people running around screaming, then, yeah, it was a slight technical problem. Their entire mobile data network went down nationally. And it appears from the statements they've released that it was due to human error. They had a faulty node, one of the backbone bits of their system, which they took offline because, hey, it was faulty. That's fine. They had processes for this. They didn't follow the processes. So what happens when they took it offline was, effectively, they seem to have crashed the whole thing. This was bad.
That's a bad day at work. That's a very bad day at work.
I can only imagine there's a few network engineers who are presumably both preparing their resumes and kind of scrubbing off worked on Telstra on that particular Tuesday from them, so people aren't aware that it was them.
Hannah, did you get hit by this?
No, I'm a cheapskate. I use an Optus reseller service. So.
Well, sometimes it's good to be cheap, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't notice. I'm with Telstra and I didn't notice it, but my wife's also with Telstra and she noticed that she had a lot of troubles making calls during that period. But working from home, I didn't encounter it. But clearly there were a lot of unhappy people. Some of them carrying on like the world was coming to an end. We weren't quite bombed back into the Stone Age, but it's a major inconvenience. With some businesses were talking about suing for lost business or lost income or something.
I feel like that happens every time there's an outage.
Yeah.
Threatening to sue is very, very easy. Actually going through with it is a little trickier. I'm also with Telstra, and what was odd for me was I was using a lot of Telstra mobile data that day, and I just kept thinking, at some point this is actually going to fall over on me, and it didn't. But I discovered after the fact that, in fact, I'd missed calls that people had tried to place to me. So I'd lost voice, but not data, which was curious. But speaking of legal action, they have offered a compensation gesture of a sort, in that across their entire network on this upcoming Sunday, so if you're listening to this after that, sorry, you missed it, all data will be quota free. Do we think this is a grand gesture or not enough?
Well, it sounds like if you've been waiting to download every episode of Game of Thrones in high def, Sunday's the day.
There's also, people are also sort of scratching their heads going, is this going to be a disaster again? Is the network going to clog up because everyone's going to be doing exactly that? So, people love a bad news story. We'll see if that happens.
It's a nice load test for the network, and I mean, there is part of my head that goes that it's not a terrible gesture, to be sure, but it's a slightly cynical one because the weekends are typically lower usage periods for those networks. Telstra does get a kind of free load test out of it. The cost of the data over that day, it's money they might not have made, but equally speaking, apart from the people who do decide to download, all of Game of Thrones or download 50 copies of Dallas Buyers Club just to stick the knife in a little bit more, apart from those people, it's perhaps not going to do a whole lot. And actually, the big thing it's not going to do anything for is businesses. I did a couple of radio interviews on this topic this week, and I had a couple of readers call in saying, call in saying that they were businesses. Sunday free data meant nothing to them because there's no benefit. They're not actually working on the Sunday. So I don't know if, I suspect they've got clauses in their contract that basically say, if we don't provide service to you, then tough luck. But I don't know that it's going to be appropriate compensation for everyone.
And those businesses that miss out on the free data are going to be the ones that were potentially the hardest hit by the outage in the first place. So they sort of lose twice.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a sole trader who operates purely off their mobile, yeah, Tuesday afternoon could have been very, very bad for you.
But also, if you're a sole trader who operates purely off your mobile and it's that critical to you, then I would have a Vodafone Wi-Fi hotspot as a backup or something. I wouldn't be putting all my eggs in the Telstra basket. If a 3-hour outage could really hurt you that much, you need a plan B.
I don't know that that's a fair assessment.
No?
I get what you're getting at, but I think there's also just the case that people thinking about voice. Very few people are specifically going to carry around a second phone in case their existing mobile phone network goes down. And they'd have to have complicated forwarding rules, which you couldn't probably enact because, hey, the Telstra network's down anyway.
Yeah. I guess I'm thinking more data than voice.
That's not necessarily going to save you.
Yeah, you're right. It does get a lot more complicated when it comes to voice. But like I said, I'm a Telstra customer, but I have a Vodafone hotspot just on the cheapest plan. Just sometimes it saves the day if I need to use a lot of data, if I'm somewhere where I can't get Telstra coverage. And it's my little insurance policy. And so that, for me, would have saved the day, but like you said, only with data, not voice.
I was just going to say that's definitely a clever backup, but how many consumers and or businesses are going to be doing that, particularly when...
Well, it depends which ones read my stories, doesn't it?
That's true. But, Vodafone's never going to say to their customers, it might help to have a Telstra backup hotspot or vice versa. It's not really... I think it's a great idea, but... yes, more people should read your blogs, Adam.
The one thing I failed to do on Tuesday, and I really, really wish I had, was to check whether or not Telstra's air network went down as well. Because that's free for Telstra mobile customers. If you needed data, you could have just headed to the nearest pink phone booth and logged into that. In theory, I don't know if it went down or not.
Was it raining on Tuesday?
Not where I was.
Oh, burn. Straight to the burns unit.
Burning is fun.
Adam, nobody likes to see an error on their phone, but if you see an error 53 on your iPhone, you're in real trouble. What's going on?
Yeah, you've got some serious problems. Basically, what it is people who've had third-party repairs done to their iPhones are finding that when they put on a new update, a new software update, it checks to see their little Touch ID fingerprint reader. And if it doesn't match, it says, there's a problem, and the update fails and it bricks the phone. So not so good. But to make things worse, you can't then go to Apple and say, my phone's no good, can you please fix it or replace it? Because as far as they're concerned, this is not a bug, it's a security feature. You changed the thing, we were worried that someone was trying to, do that thing they do in the movies and use a fake thumb to break into your phone, so we just bricked your phone. No worries. As you can imagine, not everybody's happy about this.
Yeah, I mean, I can see Apple's point of view to an extent, because nobody has, outside of people who have actually, laboratory-built fake thumbprints, yes, that does work, but it takes 24 to 48 hours. It's not terribly, terribly practical.
So you've heard, right? Not that you've heard, no first-hand experience here.
There were no first-hand experience, but there were certainly news reports when they first introduced Touch ID that said, yeah, look, that method, which works with just about any biometric system, works. Outside of that, though, nobody's cracked Touch ID. It's now integrated and baked into Apple Pay, obviously. And there's actually a reasonable argument to say, yeah, you want all this stuff to stay absolutely secure, because the moment they start winding that back is the moment people start prodding at the corners, because there's money involved, to see if they can break it and get into where the money is. So I can understand the point of view. At the same time, it ends up being a really harsh thing for a consumer who's just wanted to go for what ends up being a cheaper repair, because this is the other side of it. People go for these repairs, not so much because they go, well, I don't trust Apple. It's simply, well, the little repair booth in the mall only wants $50 to do this. Apple wants $300. Gee, I wonder which way I'll jump on that equation.
So, Hanny, do you reckon there's a middle ground here? Do you think it's necessary to nuke the phone to protect your data?
I think it's a bit silly. Couldn't they have, disabled some other features like Apple Pay, or disabled Touch ID itself and required, a password, backup password, things like that? There are some other things that they potentially could have done. And it just seems a bit harsh, because it's pretty expensive. Even if you get the Apple Pay insurance when you buy your phone, you pay a premium to get it fixed, and couldn't they have mentioned this to some of the third-party resellers so that they could avoid this terrible PR situation?
Well, I think the problem's been around for a while. It hasn't just there are other situations in which you can get an error of 53. And if you take it to Apple and they have a look at your phone and you can convince them that no dodgy Bob down at the mall didn't fix the button, it just happened, then they will replace it if it's under warranty or do whatever needs to be done. But their argument is that, it's only been showing up more recently due to these repairs, and I think it might only be on the newer phones. But I was sort of thinking of what happens with the activation lock. If my phone gets stolen, Hannah, and you find it, you can't then activate it and use it because it's locked to my Apple ID and we need to use a password to unlock it. And that's sort of cut down on iPhone thefts. I don't see why they can't do something like that here as well, where lock it in some way that I can prove that I own the phone and unlock it, but not just nuke the damn thing. Seems a bit harsh.
It seems very inefficient. I want to know what the guys at the Apple Genius department do when you bring them a bricked phone. Do they just secretly replace it with a new one because it's locked down completely? Like, what do they do?
I don't know. You hear interesting stories about. I think if you just walk up to the Genius bar on the right day at the right time and smile at the right person, they'll do just about anything for you. But as you say, it's half the time it's under the counter because they don't want 1,000 people behind you saying, "Well, you did it for him. Why didn't you do it for me?"
Yeah, it's all part of Apple's, modus operandi. It's they're very, very controlled in the way they run everything, and that can be a plus, and it works for them. And they get to say, "Look, we're so much more secure than Android," but not when it's it's like completely destroyed your $1,000 phone.
Yeah, and how many people do you think they might have driven away at this point that were perhaps loyal iPhone users, spent however many, $800 over an iPhone that's now a brick? Are these people going to happily turn around and buy another iPhone, or are they going to think, all my friends who say that I'm an idiot because I should use Android, maybe I should listen to them?
Yeah, but I imagine, Apple's brand power is just so enormous that it seems that nothing can kill it. And a few customers that are unhappy by this very unfortunate error and very unfair error, in the long run, maybe it's not going to make that much of a difference. Although, they've been having declining sales lately, but they're still a force to be reckoned with. So we'll see.
Well, that just about wraps it up for this episode of Vertical Hold. Thanks to Hannah for joining the show.
Lots of fun, guys. Thanks.
And remember, if you've got any comments, hit us up in the comments section on YouTube, via Twitter, or the Facebook Vertical Hold page.
Thanks for joining us. Remember, if you like what you hear, hit that subscribe button.